start the recording. All right, I think we can get started then. So yeah, what's up, everybody? Good. Yep. Good Sunday night. Hopefully, everybody have a great Sunday night. So yeah, for today, I guess in this episode, you could say at this point, since this is the third time I'm doing this, is I'm gonna bring a very real topic today. It's pretty controversial, maybe. So just gonna we're gonna discuss a little bit. I'm gonna talk about my first-hand experience dealing with government corruption and bribery. So just to like I'm not gonna say anything like too crazy right in this story, but just to protect myself a little bit, I would just say that uh, the the stories that I'm gonna tell you here, some of them are real, some of them are fiction, some of them are exaggerated. I think you can know which one is real and fiction. I think you can figure it out. Don't worry about it. But anyways, let's get started. And what's up, Yunagi? Good to see you here. So, what inspired me of wanna do this topic is there is a big news in my country 2 months ago. So the news is we are currently like if the investigation is still ongoing right now, but we are currently dealing with the biggest corruption scandal in the history of Indonesia so far. So this corruption scandal involves a oil company. It sounds already pretty bad. It's an oil company, and on top of that, this is a state-owned oil company. This company is called Pertamina. So yeah, we have a state-owned oil company called Pertamina. So basically, what happened is, wait, no, not what happened. The Pertamina company is a state-owned oil company. What they are responsible of is extracting the raw material of the oil, processing it into a fuel like petrol fuel, car fuel, diesel fuel, like any fuel that you use to fill up your gas in your car or motorcycle. And after you process that, it's a state-owned company because the Indonesian government actually subsidizes their fossil fuel, so we get access to cheap fuel to for our uh, car and motorcycle. So what happens is I still remember like 2 months ago when the news first broke out. The TV host said that the head director, basically the big boss of this Pertamina company, called Mr. Riva. To be honest, the name is not really relevant, but Mr. Riva, the head boss of the Pertamina company, got arrested for facing corruption charges. Corruption allegations from the year 2019 to 2024. And I'll be real with you. To be honest, there's a lot of corruption cases out there, a lot of corruptions in the world, a lot of corruption in Indonesia. But as I said earlier, what makes this case very unique is the amount of estimated damages that they disclose on that news. So, so on the TV, I still remember this. There's this detective that is talking on the press conference, and this detective said the estimated damage that this corruption case has done to the Indonesian government is predicted to be 190 trillion Indonesian rupiah. That is equivalent of $12 billion. And that is only the year of 2023. And by the way, he literally make a remark after that. It's like, this damage is only at the year 2023, by the way. And we know that this corruption has been going on for 5 years. So you can do the math a little bit, how much damage this can potentially be. So if you do the maths, 190 times 5 years, that's 950 trillion Indonesian rupiah. And if you round that up, it becomes 1 quadrillion Indonesian rupiah. Does anybody want to guess how many zeros is 1 quadrillion is? I will tell you, it's 15 zeros. It's that crazy. And if you convert that into US dollars, it's estimated to be $60 billion of damages from this corruption case. Yeah, crazy number, right? So, do you guys want to know how to embezzle $60 billion in a few years? Yeah, I did some research about this. So, what these corrupt scumbags do to embezzle $60 billion is the first step is they intentionally downscale the local production of the oil extraction in Indonesia. So obviously, before we can get fuel, we need to extract the raw resources, the raw oil from the ground up and then process that into fuel, right? But here is the thing. Not all raw oil is good quality enough to be converted into fuel. So there needs to be a study where, oh, this oil is good, this oil is bad. Now here's the thing. What these corrupt government officials do is they declare a perfectly good oil extraction site as a bad one. So, for example, if in Indonesia we can produce oil, natural oil in a scale of 10, it becomes only a scale of 3 because they declared the other 7 oil extraction sources are as bad. Now, what happens if you downscale the oil extraction process? Obviously, you cannot meet the demands of the local fuel demand. That means we gotta import the rest of the raw oil from outside the country into Indonesia. So it's already very bad where we gotta buy more raw oil from outside country, go to Indonesia, but it's made even worse when the Pertamina company bought this oil from companies that are friendly to them. So there is no tender process, no bargaining process, no discussions. It's just that one of the higher ups in the Pertamina company just said, hey, let's buy oil from this company. And by the way, let's not talk about that this company is owned by my wife's family. Don't worry about that. And they make such good quality oil, we should pay them 110% of the rate. So as you can see, they intentionally upcharge how much the government is spending, and that's where corruption happens. And then, so yeah, as you can imagine, that's already pretty bad. But that's not all the methods they are doing to gather more money for their own benefit. They also did this thing where they mark up the transportation cost of delivering the made fuel into various locations in the country. So for example, if you need $100 to hire a fuel truck to transport from the petroleum facility to the gas station, instead of charging you $100, they charge you $120 and they pocket the extra $20 kind of thing. There's the minor thing of doing that, and that's not even the worst, by the way. I'm gonna get into why this corruption case has been a very huge controversy and a very huge discussion at least in the Indonesia society and media. So, but before I get into the last bit, I need to get into the context, a little bit about the fuel in Pertamina. So, in my country, Pertamina sells 3 products. One of them is called Pertalite. Second is called Pertamax, and the third is called Pertadex. So Pertalite and Pertamax is the petrol fuel for the cars and motorcycle. Pertadex is diesel fuel. Personally, I use a 2020 Toyota Fortuner, and it's a diesel engine, so I use Pertadex. But in this case, it's not relevant. The focus on this case is on the Pertalite and Pertamax. Now, the question is, what's the difference between Pertalite and Pertamax? The difference is the fuel quality. So, do you guys know there is actually a measurement to measure how good of a quality a petrol fuel is? It's called RON. It stands for, oh, rip Master Luke. It's RON. It stands for research octane number. So Pertalite is the cheaper option of the petrol fuel. It's at 90 RON. Pertamax, it's at 92 RON, which is the more expensive option and the higher quality one. So, I'm not gonna go into the science of what fuel RON means, but TLDR, if you have a higher RON of fuel, it makes the combustion in the engine much more stable, which is a good thing, because if you have an unstable combustion on a lower quality fuel, it can actually have an unstable combustion which leads to cracking on the engine. So in the long term, the engine will get damaged if you keep using cheap fuel. And then another advantage of using a higher RON is the fuel is much more efficient. So per liter or per gallon of fuel, your car can travel further distance. And then last but not least, another advantage of a higher quality fuel is the power itself. This is why if you own a sports car or muscle car or any luxury cars, this is why it's highly recommended to use more expensive fuel. So when you kick the gas, your car goes vroom, kind of thing. There's a bit of context of what's the difference between Pertalite and Pertamax petrol fuel. So, what these government officials do is they sell both Pertalite and Pertamax, right? So we have the choice to either buy Pertalite, the cheaper option of fuel, or Pertamax, the more high quality and a little bit more expensive fuel. What they did is they mix a mixture of Pertalite fuel and Pertamax fuel together. So they mix those two fuel together and then they sell it as a pure Pertamax fuel. So can you see where this is going? It's literally scamming the consumers out of the fuel they bought. The consumers expect a pure Pertamax fuel, but in reality, what they're getting is a mixture of Pertalite and Pertamax fuel, which is not a good thing. They are selling something that they don't. And by the way, by mixing those two fuels together, it's actually in the long term damages the engine because, like, just to summarize it a little bit, in general, mixing two fuels together at the same time is not a good thing. It will lead to a more unstable combustion in the engine. So imagine this has been going on for 5 years, and Pertamina has been distributing this mixture of fuel for 5 years to all across the country. We have 290 million people living in this country, so you can probably guess how much damage to consumers' private vehicles while this is happening. So yeah, this is why the Indonesian people are very angry when this news first break out. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, how you embezzle and corrupt 60 billion US dollars of government funds from the Indonesian people. What do you guys think? That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Also, by the way, on a side note, it's not on my script, by the way. We have I just got news literally yesterday night, so 12 hours ago, that there is a celebrity by the name of Mrs. Ashifa got arrested for being linked into this corruption investigation. So she has nothing to do. So she's basically a celebrity, and she won Miss Indonesia for in the year 2010. So it's not. So it's basically a beauty pageant kind of thing, a beauty competition, and she's so beautiful, she's so smart. She won the beauty pageant competition in 2010. But anyways, she just got arrested yesterday night because apparently she received a couple of $millions of those embezzled fund from one of the corrupt officials that got arrested 2 months ago. They say she received it as a gift, but the corrupt official is like 50 years old, and this lady, this celebrity, is very pretty. I think, without saying it, I think it's more than a gift, let's just say. So I'll leave it at that. anyways. Alright. So, unfortunately, in Indonesia, we have a lot of corruption cases. So it's not new for me. So I could spend this entire storytelling bit listing one by one the corruption cases that happen in Indonesia, but I'm not gonna do that. You can just do a quick Google of the corruption cases in Indonesia. You can have a list of it. So instead, I'm gonna switch gears a bit on some of the first-hand experiences I have in bribery and corruption cases, and doing corruption in Indonesia. So here's the thing. When I think of corruption cases in the TV, sometimes I got memories of my first experience witnessing bribery in my personal life. So for the simplicity of the story, I still remember when I was a kid. I was in a car, and I was with my dad, and my dad was driving me around the city. So what happened is, it's me and my dad in the car driving around the city. We have a good time visiting various places, but then when we are on the way of going home, we got stuck on a very heavy traffic jam. It was on the highway, and in a highway, there's a couple of lanes where the cars are, and there's the emergency lane that is reserved for emergencies, as you know. So it's pretty stupid, not gonna lie, but my dad has the bright idea at that time of using the emergency lane to cut through the traffic, which is a bad idea and a violation of traffic laws. So he basically got what you expected. Once he used the emergency lane, after using it for a while, there is a cop saw that, and the cop stopped my dad for using the emergency lane. So so what happens is, the cop goes to the driver's side of the car, and the cop is like, the usual. It's like, hey, hello, you used the emergency lane, that's illegal. Can I have your driving license and proof of car ownership, please? And then my dad is like, okay, sure, let me bring it. So my dad brings take out his driving license, take out the paper slip of car ownership. But here's the thing: this is the first time where I witness witness firsthand of bribery in action. My dad took his wallet, take a couple of hundreds of Indonesian rupiah from the wallet. He crumpled the money a little bit, and then he wrapped the money around the car proof of ownership slip. So it's a little bit hidden. And then he take that and his driving license, give it to the cop. And the cop receive it. He checked the driving license. He opened the paper slip, took the thing, pocketed it, and then read the slip again. And then after like 1 minute, the cop returned the documents to my dad. And then the cop is like, all right, there you go. Just don't do that again. You're free to leave. And then we left the scene after that. So, for the first time of witnessing that, I was a bit shocked on what happened. So, after a little bit of silence, I asked my dad, like, Dad, like, is like, I'm just confused, So I literally asked my dad, uh, hey, Dad, like, how did you know that you can bribe this cop? Isn't being caught by isn't being caught bribing is gonna make it worse? And then my dad told me, well, Lux, you have to see the body language of the cop. So here's the thing. When the cop approaches the window of the vehicle, if he make a distance like this with you and him, then that's a honest cop, where everybody can see the interaction between the cop and the driver. But if you see the cop leaning to your window like this, his hands are inside your vehicle, that's where you know you can attempt to bribe the cop. So I was mind blown because that's the case for the future, where if I observe other people getting pulled over by the cop, those thing does happen. Yeah. So yeah, an interesting experience of my first time witnessing a bribery in action. And then that was me when I was a kid at driving with for the simplicity of the story, driving with my dad. But anyways, as I get older, I start to go to high school, university, and I still remember when I'm going home from work. I went. Okay, I need to backstep a bit. Sorry. So I need to. So I was working I was working like to a new company. It's literally fresh out of me finishing university. So I got work at the city center. It took 2 hours for me to go back and forth from the city center to my home. So I still remember I need to go back home from my workplace, and my mom is kind enough to pick me up from my home place, and we go home together. And I still remember on the radio at that time, there is a news that is broadcasted by the radio talk show host. There's another corruption scandal where the head of the telecommunications in Indonesia embezzled a few millions of dollars when upgrading the 5G network of the Indonesian telecommunications, like the cell phone towers kind of thing. And after hearing that, like I don't remember how we got into this conversation, but at one point I asked my mom, like, have you bribed a government official before? And my mom is like, absolutely. I was like, what? That's like so direct. Just suddenly said absolutely. And then I was like, well, is there an example of doing this? And then my mom was like, sure, I will tell you the secret, the methods of how to bribe a government official. So, and the best part is, the way to bribe this government official is technically legal. So this is why I can say this right now. So what you do is, you do your thing, you make an agreement with the government official, and then you schedule to meet up with them on international waters. So you go to the ship, you give them the money there, and then they take that money through the boat to somewhere else, to another country, and then you return on a different boat. Because it's happening on international waters, technically they don't really break the law. So yeah, that's another surprising thing that happened on witnessing that. So yeah, uh, now after hearing those few cases of my first-hand experience of witnessing corruption and bribery, you are probably wondering, why is Indonesia so corrupt? Well, there's a few theories around there. I don't have the answers, but uh, but if you want my personal opinion, I have a few opinions on why this is the case. So first of all is Indonesia is a poor country. Our government officials are not paid really well enough, but at the same time, I think that's not really an excuse because it's kind of like a cycle thing where the government is not paid well enough, so they do corruption, but because of corruption, the government doesn't have enough money. So it's kind of like a self-fulfilling cycle where the cause of corruption is make what our country is poor and stuff like that. So it's not really an excuse. And obviously, uh, I also I also think in Indonesia we have a little bit of a religion problem where it's like if somebody sees somebody doing something wrong, the general sentiment is they don't call out the problem. It's where uh, usually people in Indonesia, we don't really call out problems. We don't really want problems. We don't want to fight with other people. So if they witness something somebody else did wrong, they are like, okay, you do you. If you did something wrong, I will let the gods above that will judge us in the afterlife, kind of thing. So that kind of mentality kind of enable bribery and corruption in Indonesia. And then, of course, there is also, there's also the law itself that I think has been systematically designed on making busting corruption a little bit harder. So here's the thing: we actually have a very we actually have a severe law in corruption where if you got caught doing corruption, you can be on a prison sentence for decades and be fined where your entire assets will be taken away, which is a good thing. But the problem is the law is designed where if you're getting caught doing the corruption, you the one that is taking the corruption and the person that is giving the corruption, both of them are punished. Is going to get punished for doing that. So here's the thing. Here's what you need to think about. If both people is punished, you're incentivized to keep it a secret. Because, like, for example, like, hey, I want to bribe you. And then the person that is receiving the bribe is like, okay, I'll take the bribe. But if you snitch to the officials, they know that it's not only me that is getting punished. The one who snitched will also get punished. If we change the law a little bit, where the person who snitched can go free, that creates a dynamic where if somebody tries to bribe a government official, the government official can be like, if you try to bribe a government official, you kind of second guess yourself, It's like, now there's a risk where if you try to bribe and he snitch to the police that you try to bribe him, now you're in trouble and he's not in trouble. So I think until the law has been fixed a little bit, I think this corruption thing still gonna be a huge thing in Indonesia, unfortunately. So, yeah, those are a few things of of my first-hand experience in Indonesia. And you know what? I'll just I'll just end it there. That's all I have for today. Hopefully you find that interesting. And as I said, the stories are a little bit fiction. Uh, some of it is true, some of it is untrue. So I'll leave you to it. I'll leave you to it to figure it out which one is true and untrue. All right.